Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. It's the chart show, the time when we rank the top 10 Manchester United players of the week, like they used to do on the great chart shows that we used to have for music. We do it for United players, and it's going to be, I'm really excited about this one because I think it really encapsulates what the chart show should be all about. You can get massive new entries, you can get people dropping out, you can get people stabilising, climbing, holding positions. That's what we've got this week, and I'm very, very excited to do it. So let's, without further ado, get straight into it. I can tell you we've got 2 new entries this week, and we've got 2 people dropping out completely. I'll give some disclosure on who that will be in a moment, but let's start off with this week's number 10. It's Cristiano Ronaldo, who I think last week he was joint 9th, wasn't he, with Rashford. So he drops one spot place. He drops one place, or one spot. Or one spot place this week. Cristiano Ronaldo is down to number 10. He's still in the top 10, but he's number 10. And look, remember, we're taking into account 2 games this week. A 1-0 win against West Ham and a 1-0 win against Sociedad. So 2 wins, 2 goals, 2 clean sheets. And Ronaldo's played in both those games, hasn't he? I don't think he's been subbed off in either of those. So I think, look, is Ronaldo on fire at the moment? No. Is he a player that I think's working towards the World Cup? Yes. I heard somebody say something ridiculous this week, actually. I'd forgotten to mention it on any of the shows. Do you think Ronaldo skipped pre-season on purpose so that he could have a longer break and build himself gradually to the World Cup? I mean, look, never say never on anything, but I don't think so. I don't think Ronaldo's the sort of player that would do that. And he's not an injury-prone player either, so I don't know. I don't think that's what happened, but I do think that Ronaldo is sort of, in many ways, probably going to hit the World Cup peak. I still don't think he's quite there yet, and can he be there for 3 or 4 months anymore? Maybe everything is coming together for him for the World Cup. But what I think you've got to say as a positive is that we've got no Martial at the moment, we've got no Anthony at the moment, and Ronaldo's just played 2 games in 4 days for us. He'll probably play against Villa, and just like last season, Ronaldo's there. He's fit and he's there, and I think that is something to acknowledge because certain players aren't there, whether it's through injury problems or whatever. So, and of course, Ronaldo played the assist for Gancho on Thursday night. I mean, I don't think he's been brilliant. I don't think he's been terrible. I think he's just been, steady for us. I personally don't think we score many goals as a team still. I still think it's something that Ten Hag's looking to resolve. And when he does, I think that Ronaldo will start to score more goals as well. So this week is number 10. Number 9 is his Portuguese compatriot, and his name is Bruno Fernandez. Last week, Bruno was number 5, so he's dropped 4 spaces this week. And I think that's a combination of 2 things. Really, players performing better than Bruno has this week, and probably a couple of average performances for Bruno. I don't think he played particularly well against West Ham. Obviously ended up shifting out wide against West Ham as well. And then against Sociedad, he was predominantly out on the wing, probably in preparation for him not playing against Villa because he's suspended, but also because we were short off the right-hand side. And his crossing was really, really poor. I think that we saw against Bruno for that cross the other game where he put it in for Ronaldo, who headed it and then followed it in. Bruno Fernandez has got a brilliant cross on him, but he just hasn't had a good week. I would describe it as probably average. Some people might describe it as below average, but that's why he's this week's number 9. Bruno Fernandez is this week's number 9. This week's number 8 is Christian Eriksen, and again, he is a player that was a new entry last week at number 4, and he's dropped 4 spaces to number 8. To which people will be saying, what are you talking about, Mark? It was a delightful assist for Rashford last week against West Ham. And it was a delightful assist. And even Marcus Rashford mentioned it on his Twitter feed. What a fantastic assist it was. But he was very poor against Sociedad. It was a very bad performance by Eriksen. And look, that's not breaking news. It's not hate or anything like that. I think we all absolutely love having Christian Eriksen as a player at Manchester United, but in the interests of fairness and not having agendas and favourites, then you would call Eriksen's performance out against Sociedad as not that good. I think there's many reasons for that. I think he maybe is looking a bit tired at the moment, but it wasn't a good performance against Sociedad, first or second half, and then he was subbed. Against West Ham, I think that the assist was very, very good, but in the second half, I felt that we gave up that midfield really, and I don't think it was a particularly good second half from Eriksen either. So ultimately, 8th place in the top 10 isn't that bad when you take into account a poor performance against Sociedad, not a great second half against West Ham, and he did get a very, very good assist. So this week's number 8 is Christian of Eriksen. This week's number 7 is Luke Shaw. He was last week's number 3. Had a fantastic, a bit like Eriksen last week, and had a really good couple of games. He was last week's number 3, Luke Shaw. He's dropped 4 places to this week's number 7. And I think that the reason I would put Luke Shaw ahead of Eriksen and Bruno, but the reason I would drop him to number 7, like we have, is because we've had 2 clean sheets and we've defensively been very good this week. I just feel that Luke Shaw, performance-wise, has probably dipped a little bit this week. And I think we're going to see this quite a lot with players. We saw it with Delph about a month ago. We've seen it with Eriksen this week. We're playing a lot of games. I think it's very, I have sympathy for Eriksen and Luke Shaw. I think that it is impossible to play at the levels we expect and want them to play every 3 or 4 days. They're going to have games where it drops to sort of average. And I don't think Luke Shaw's been bad. I thought against West Ham he was reasonably good, and I thought against Sociedad he was okay, and that's why he's number 7 for me this week. I mean, 7's not terrible, is it? And I think when you see the players that are ahead of him, you'll understand why he's number 7. I don't think Luke Shaw's had a bad week. I just think he's probably levelled off a bit. Slightly above average. Defence has been good, but the week before obviously had those 2 assists, didn't he, from the crosses that he put in? So I think both were for Rashford, weren't they? So yeah, I think this week Luke Shaw is this week's number 7. In fact, I know he is. That's where he is. So Luke Shaw is number 7 this week, which means I think he's number 6. He was last week's number 8, and his name is Gancho. Yeah, I'm sure some of you would like to put him number 1. That would be completely unrealistic, and we do need to temper our youth and hold it back a little bit and not overhype it and let it grow and develop and nurture. But what a goal it was in Sociedad in the Europa League in that 1-0 win. Took it really, really well. Had a few touches as well. It wasn't like he just ran onto it and hit it. He had to dribble a bit. Good ball from Ronaldo, but still a lot to do. And took it really, really well. Didn't actually start against West Ham, did he? And he didn't even come on in that game. So for him to be higher than 6 is a bit difficult when he hasn't played both games. But you can do that. You can do that. You could still be number 1 off 1 game. He isn't. But another step forward, and a big step forward in the development of Erik ten Hag's youngster of the season so far, which is Gancho. We heard Bruno talking after the game against Sociedad about an attitude issue at the start of the season. We've heard Ten Hag say that a couple of weeks ago. But he seems to be firing on all cylinders now. Looks happy. I really did enjoy the clip that I'm sure most of you have seen, is the one after the goal in Sociedad where he's celebrating and then he asks Ronaldo if he can do his celebration. Ronaldo says yes, and he goes and does it. I mean, if you've watched the goals this weekend, all around Europe, people are doing that celebration. So I doubt they've asked Ronaldo for that. But, at the end of the day, I think the great thing about Gancho is that I don't know. I don't know what he's going to be. And I've seen so many players. I mean, Janusaj comes to mind. I remember Janusaj thinking he was going to be something amazing, and he wasn't. So I don't really label young players about what they're going to be, because we've all done that, and it hasn't necessarily worked out. Sometimes it has, sometimes it hasn't. But I think he's in the right environment. I think a lot of people talk about the fact that, and it's an amazing thing to be the age that Gancho is and to be catching the end of Messi and Ronaldo's career. In 5-10 years' time, Messi and Ronaldo will be long retired, and this is a young lad who can say, well, as a teenager, I was training with Ronaldo and playing with Ronaldo, and I was training with Messi and playing with Messi, potentially even in a World Cup. So he's got the right, platform. He's got people like Martinez who will keep him on the ground. He's got Casemiro. He's got Ten Hag. I think he's got everything in front, and he's got the platform at Manchester United, because Manchester United is about developing youth. So I think he's got everything in front of him, and he's just got to keep his feet on the ground, work hard, and keep developing. And good luck to him, and good luck to us, because if he does well at Manchester United, we will benefit from it. But a good week for him. This week's number 6, which means this week's number 5 is Marcus Rashford. He's moved up 4 spots. Some people might say why. I still get it that some people think Rashford's overhyped, but I think that the goal that he scored against West Ham was excellent. And whilst I don't think he was that good against Sociedad, I do think he had a very good performance against West Ham. and I think he played against West Ham in a position that I think suits him best as a wide left forward. I thought against Sociedad it wasn't a great performance because he was trying too much. He was almost getting on the ball too much, trying to dribble too much, which not many players can do that. So I think even though he played pretty poorly against Sociedad, it still showed the confidence and talent that he's got, because the things that he did wrong against Sociedad was trying to do too much, which not many players can do that. Not many players can get the ball and try and take players on. So I think Rashford's in a good place at the moment, and I think he deserves to be this week's number 5. And as I said, I think that the big tick in the box that Rashford needs is the fact that he's clearly worked hard in the summer, and I don't think many people thought that he could do that. The ability to improve his his ability in the air, to keep those eyes open, to keep his eye on the ball, and start scoring really good headers when, for the last 4 or 5 years you'd say that's not part of his game. It's impressive, and there's clearly a lot of development over the last 3 months. There's a lot of hard work over the last 3 months, and there's a lot of coaching over the last 3 months. So I think we're all happy with Rashford at the moment, and hopefully he can continue that, because it could have easily gone the other way, and we'd been in a lot of trouble if Rashford was the player he's been for the last 18 months. So fair play to all, well done. Marcus Rashford is this week's number 5. Now, this week's number 4 was last week's number 6, but he's gone back up 2 spots. It's Delph. Not really a surprise, considering that we've had 2 clean sheets this week, and I think that Delph has been fundamental in that. Now, obviously, Luke Shaw's at number 7 and Delph's at number 4. I think that's just because Delph's had a better week than Luke Shaw, marginally, maybe. But I do feel that Delph, especially with Bruno going down that side, I think we utilised the right-hand side a lot more than we utilised the left side, especially against Sociedad. And I think that Delph, whilst it wasn't his man of the match, wasn't it? Well, the obvious reason for me why Delph is in the top 4 is because he was man of the match against West Ham. I know Gary Neville gave it to Rashford for the goal, but he was man of the match. That was the game. I mean, a week's a long time in football, isn't it? But you could argue that Delph should be even higher than 4, because that performance against West Ham was remarkable. The amount of back post headers he won, and it was a fantastic performance against West Ham. And it does feel like quite a long time ago, but he was absolutely superb in that. He was my man of the match. So, look, Delph's had a very, very good week, and 2 clean sheets, and he was a massive part of that against West Ham. And I think that's what the difference is between 4th place Delph and Luke Shaw being at 7th, is that Delph was just remarkably good against West Ham, and the development continues, doesn't it? So Delph is this week's number 4, which means that this week's number 3 is, and it's three weeks at number 1 for Casemiro up until today, but it won't be 4 weeks at number 1, because he's dropped 2 spacers to number 3. Casemiro has been toppled at number 1. It's good news, it's good news in a way. You want other people to be stepping up and taking that spot, and I think that Casemiro has not had a bad week by anybody's standards, but it's a testament to the top 2 to push Casemiro down to 3. I think Casemiro obviously has been our number 1 in the chart for 3 weeks in a row. What a player he's been. The team has changed with him in it, and I think that those clean sheets against Sociedad and West Ham would not have been as so hard fought, or achievable if we didn't have Casemiro sitting in front of that defence. I think he's had a good week. But I just think there's been 2 players better than him this week, and Casemiro, the biggest, and I thought his press conference was fantastic this week. The way he spoke about the Premier League, the difference between that and the Liga, the way he spoke about Ten Hag, the way Ten Hag spoke about him being the cement between the rocks. Casemiro is massively important to us, and the biggest compliment I can play about Casemiro is that if he was to get injured, then the drop-off would be huge. Check the video on the members. If you are a member, make sure you watch the members video I put up yesterday about Casemiro, because what he brings to that team in different areas, his stats on recoveries, interceptions, passing, aerial duels, defensive actions, it's just ridiculous compared to anybody in this team, but also he can compete with any Rodri or whoever else within the league. He's doing great things. But he's not this week's number 1, because this week's number 2, and I think it's probably 3 or 4 weeks in a row that Martinez has been at number 2. And I wanted to push him in at number 1. I really did want to make him number 1 this week. Again, like Delph, Martinez was superb against West Ham. And he was a contender for man of the match in that game. It's 2 clean sheets. He is the centre-back that is the constant. As I said last week, he's had to play with Varane. He's had to play with Lindelof. Well, it's not a chore to play with Varane, but his partner is Varane. He gets injured. His partner is Lindelof. He gets ill. His partner is Maguire. And then Lindelof comes back in again. So this is a real sign of a centre-back that is right at the top of his game and is actually fantastic. To play with so many different centre-backs in so many big games, because it's always a big game for Manchester United, and still perform, and your performance individually isn't impacted by playing with a tall Harry Maguire or a world-class Rafael Varane or a Victor Lindelof. His game stays constant. And centre-back is the one area in the game where a partnership matters anymore. The combinations aren't as important as a centre-back pairing, and for him to be as constant as he has been with 3 different partners is exceptional. And he was very good against West Ham, but let's not forget the moment for me, which was basically a mic drop moment to Graham Souness and Jamie Carragher, and there's many others who basically went, he's too small for the Premier League. There's many of us who said Fabio Cannavaro was 5'10" and he won the Ballon d'Or. If you actually look at Martinez for Ajax, he's very, very good in the air. But they didn't want to listen to that. They thought that, 5'10" to 6'4" is about that much of a gap. 6 inches. And 6 inches can be massive. But 6 inches, if you've got a big leap. But the big moment for me, and it's the clip that really sits down anybody who ever has a go at his height, because there will be times when someone scores a header against Martinez, because there'll be a time when someone scores a header against Maguire, like João Felix did last year. There'll be a time when people score a header against Van Dijk. It will always happen, and when it happens once, people will go, that's why he's too small. But the moment really that mattered was the game against Sociedad. Sorloth, lovely cross from the left-hand side by Sociedad. It's there on a plate for Sorloth, and you think he's going to get it. 6'4" against 5'10", and Martinez wins the header. And that was the mic drop moment, and that was the moment where I think hopefully these naive critics who don't do their homework realise that they've made themselves look rather foolish by saying that Martinez is too small for the Premier League. Because right now, he's the best left-sided centre-back in the league. He is. On form, he quite clearly is. But he is this week's number 2, and it's amazing. He has had a number 1 before, hasn't he? But yeah, Mr. Consistent, that's what he is. He is pure consistent, is our Martinez. But this week's number 1, and you know what? Some people might disagree. They might say it should be Martinez, but I think it's symbolic, it's deserved, and it's also a new entry. It's straight back in. He wasn't in the top 10 last week, not because he's had a bad week, but because he hadn't really had anything to do. This week, he's been very busy. Remarkable saves against West Ham. World-class saves against West Ham. And then 2 fantastic saves against Sociedad as well. But not just the saves. Immaculate distribution in Spain and against West Ham. And so for me, David De Gea is a worthy number 1 this week, because not only has he produced those world-class shot-stopper moments, but he's also consistently showing this huge improvement in his mobility to come out of his box, his awareness on the ball, and his ability to pass out from the back. Things that people had written him off about. I've seen plenty of TikToks, shit talks I call them, with these so-called experts who basically are pissing in the wind and hoping they don't get blowback. Oh, De Gea's the problem. He's the worst goalkeeper. He couldn't pass wind. And they've been absolutely sat down. I would say to those people, what's been happening for the last few weeks then? You can't call it luck when it's been happening game after game after game after game for weeks. The saves, the distribution, the leadership. I just think De Gea has been fantastic this last week, and so good that I don't think there's much of a debate as to whether he should be getting a new contract now. So he deserves it. He's been brilliant this week, and there's been so much criticism. And I even go back to 18 months ago when Sky and BT were putting the cameras on him all the time, and trying to get him out of the team for Dean Henderson for the Euros. And it's just been very disrespectful treatment of a club legend who time and time again has been remarkably superb for us. And again, people were trying to write him off. And again, he's come out. And if you look at a lot of the headlines in Spain on Thursday night, they were like, why is this goalkeeper not in a 55-man squad for Spain? And, the answer to that question is for Luis Enrique, of course. And there are some very good Spanish goalkeepers, but I still don't think there are many better shot stoppers in world football than David De Gea. And when you add into when you're providing with a coach like Erik ten Hag, who's encouraging him to pass and coaching him how to do that, you end up with what we've got, which is a very, very, very good back four at the moment, back five. We're not conceding many goals. And yet we're winning loads of games. We're not scoring many goals, when you look at United, I said it yesterday, our home record, I think we've scored 9 at home. Well, Villa have scored 8 at home, and they're having a terrible season. So how have we got so many points? It's built on this strong defence. It really is. Our defence has been remarkable this season. It's not something that United, we traditionally think about. We have been good at the back over the years, but our defence this year is fantastic, and long may that continue. So that's it. That's your top 10 this week. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Get your comments in below. There might be 1 or 2 that you disagree with. That's what it's all about. But Casemiro is no longer number 1. David De Gea has taken it for this week. Obviously, next week, we've got a double header for next week's show against Villa. I expect to see a lot of changes in the Carabao Cup next Thursday, but the Villa away game, it's going to be big. And you know what? It could be defenders again in the top 5 if we get the right result, because I think it'll be a tight game. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you all in a bit.